let's talk about the spending review, because we had a really interesting conversation with Liam Halligan, who's an economist. And basically, we're not getting growth. We can't borrow anymore. Tax is already at a 70-year high. They already were under the Tories, and they've been put up even more. What do you expect we're going to hear, and how is it all going to be paid for?
Well, it's going to be paid for by more borrowing. I think that's the only way you can do this.
We can't borrow anymore because the interest rates will go up even more.
The Chancellor is doing the spend more, borrow more rhetoric that I did when I was in my 20s and didn't know any better and got a credit card for the first time.
Yes!
I thought I was rich, and she's doing this, but she's the Chancellor and should absolutely know better. But I've learned a lot from listening to Liam Halligan. He's explained economics in a way that I understand. And I think he's spot on with things like corporation tax. Yeah. The minute you start taxing businesses is where you see the problems start to creep in. Yeah. You reduce the corporation tax, and funnily enough, your receipts into the Treasury become higher.
He made a point about that. I've spoken to various people who point out that actually there were other things that were happening in the economy at the same time. There are lots of, Margaret Thatcher, they get a lot of credit for a lot of things they do. And I think rightly, although I was not a fan at the time, I have to say. But actually there were a lot of it. You had the oil revenue tax receipt. There was a lot of not more money coming in but then on the corporation tax, it's amazing how many people I think of, that's those big rich people.
Precisely.
The corporation tax is just, it's sort of Elon Musk type people. No. Anyone who runs, your plumber who runs a one-man business, the local cleaning company, they run a one business, they're paying corporation tax on any profits.
They are, and you have to pay it. There is no way around it. So even if you employ one or two people, or you're a sole trader, you still have to pay that. You've still got to do tax return. You've still got all of the expenses that you have as a business. Now, how does that encourage you to grow? If you're a plumber, you might look to take on an apprentice, if that is going to be financially possible for you to do so. You make that difficult, then that plumber isn't going to take on an apprentice. You lose an opportunity for a young person, and there's no business growth going.
And they don't grow their economy. And again, things like that VAT threshold. Yeah. You've also got, we know, 25 billion pound hike in the national insurance from employers. Even the Institute of Fiscal Studies, who are studiously neutral on these things, say that this was clearly a breach of what the government, the Labour Party said before they got into government. We will not raise taxes on working people, they said. We will not, they specifically said, we will not raise income tax, VAT or national insurance. They said, oh no, we meant national insurance for employees, not employers. But as we've seen, because we've got 250,000, a quarter of a million fewer jobs in the economy than a year ago. That's what the latest official stats say. It's not my opinion, that's what the stats say. Those jobs don't exist because we haven't got growth, and partly because we've had a tax on employing more people.
Yeah, we had a jobs tax, which is what it is. So they were very Weasley words with their, we're not going to raise taxes on working people. Well, yeah, but you have, because you've given it to businesses who have then laid off people. Unemployment's currently at 4.6%. I mean, that's ridiculous in this day and age that we've got unemployment.
It's low compared to most of Europe.
Yes, it is, but for our country, this is not a good level to be at.
But why do we need to import all these people from abroad when we've got a load of unemployed people here? And by the way, those are just the ones who claim to be looking for a job. Because as we're always told, oh, no, all these people who are on sick benefits of some kind, they want to work. Do they? Because... and then,
theory.
By the way, and when I say that, I'm not talking about people who are genuinely sick. You're having cancer treatment. You're genuinely seriously disabled. You've got no one's talking about those people. That's what we have. That's what we have a welfare state for, because we're a civilised country. But we all know the people who could work.
Yes.
I've never been in a job where there aren't people who people who are off when they've got a sniffle.
Yes,
I mean, we all know the Monday morning people. We know those people.
And the Thursday afternoon when they start to feel a little bit iffy, and then shocker, they're not in on a Friday.
Can I give you a top tip? If you're going to be dodgy like that, always have to take 2 days. No one believes you. No one believes you if you just take the one day. Never on a Monday. Never on a Monday. People never. Just some top tips for you if you're in your 20s and you want to do this. But you know what I hate, actually? It's really interesting. You hear adverts all the time on music radio where they're a lot of the adverts are joking about how I can get off work and how I can pretend to be working from home, but I've actually got a cardboard cutout. They're mocking the whole this celebration and mockery of the whole we don't do any work thing.
Yeah.
This is not a good thing for our people, our country.
No. No, it's not. And it also puts the mockery on people that do actually work from home. I'm one of those people, and I do get a lot done, and I know that people have views on working from home.
Different kinds of jobs, I get that.
But there are different kinds of jobs, and you get that kind of mockery, which then leads to people not believing that it's any good. Everybody must be in the office.
But there are lots of people who swing the... They are.
There are people that swing the lead in the office.
I'm on a Zoom call. No, you're walking the dog.
Yeah.
How much is this meeting actually useful at any point? By the way, we need to stop all the Zoom calls, but there we are.
Yes, we do.
So what do you think about Angela Rayner, the Housing Secretary, Deputy Prime Minister, of course? She seems to have done better than a lot of other departments, which would normally be dwarfed by defence spending, NHS spending and the like. We know Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, is definitely not happy with her settlement. We could have some more police cuts. Brilliant, because, of course, crime has been solved. Basically, they're going to solve crime by making everything not a crime. If it's not a crime, then we've solved crime, you see. That's fine.
Everybody's happy.
Shoplifting's already not a crime. Rough sleeping's going to no longer be a crime, according to Angela Rayner. But Rachel Reeves is going to unveil a £39 billion housing boost. It's part of the spending review. It's actually over 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's basically £4 billion a year, which isn't quite... I don't understand why some things are announced over 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years. Just give me the number, what it is. She doesn't get to set what the spending is in the next Parliament, because she's probably not going to be... she's definitely not going to be the Chancellor in the next government. But do we need to be spending more money on social housing? Is that a good thing?
Yes, it is. OK, and this is the one thing that I do support, because I don't think council houses should have been sold off. Now, it's a controversial policy, I know, but I do think that you need social housing. I know people bought them, and if their family bought them, it changed their lives. But still. Same here. But if you're not going to replace that stock, then those people coming through who've got a housing need aren't going to get it.
The councils were banned from doing that. They were banned by Margaret Thatcher from actually using that money. And it was blatant political,
Well, of course it was. And
gerrymandering, really.
And looking back on it, it shouldn't have happened. But at the time, it was a wholly different time when you look at the 1980s, and things were booming.
Yeah.
And people
so they got away with it.
You got away with it. You hid it under other things.
But we also didn't have the extra 10 million people in the country that we've got now, and with barely any extra housing. There's no doubt at all that Angela Rayner is already horribly behind on that 1.5 million houses that she thinks she's going to be. Now, Tories used to have, they had a pledge of 200,000 homes, I think, every year. Never met that. Hers is 250,000, is it?
Yeah, she won't meet that.
I'm trying to do the maths, isn't it? Yes.
She won't meet that either. And I think that,
and they won't be affordable.
They won't be affordable. And this is your problem, because building companies don't want to build smaller properties. They don't want to build the social housing or 2 or 3 bedroom properties. They want the 5-bedroom luxury apartments
which sit empty, bought by Chinese and Saudi investors and lie empty.
They want those sort of luxury residential properties to be sold because it makes them more money. They don't want to build 1 or 2 bedroom flats or small 2-3 bedroom homes, starter home type places.
People want a home with a garden for their kids.
They do, but that's not what the building company is going to look at, because those developers won't make cash.
What do you make of these stats showing, £3.8 billion being paid just in London alone to house foreigners in terms of social housing, so housing association, council housing, where they're getting reduced rents by saving tune of like 11.5 grand a year. Almost 50%, 48% of all properties, social housing in London, have a head of a household, an adult in that household, who is foreign born. Now, it justifies belief to me if we're constantly told that immigration is this wonderful boon to the economy. If people are such a boon to the economy, why are we having to give them subsidised housing?
But I think that's why we need to look at the benefit system and housing benefits. Those people could well be in work, but they're getting top up with universal
I'm so fed
credit.
up with the whole working poor thing.
Yeah, there are
you work 2 days a week. Yeah, but either way... But you're not going to be a net contributor. You may be doing useful work, but I'm sure we've got someone sitting on the dole queues here who should be doing that work instead. But the point is that they can't afford to pay them higher wages. No, but we're subsidising their housing.
Exactly, and I think that's what we need to look at, is how many people are we subsidising? What are we paying for exactly? Do they need to live in central London, for example?
Oh my God! I mean, there's so many councillors. We're told them that's ethnic cleansing or social cleansing or something. I don't know. If you move people out, I don't think you've got a right to live in Mayfair. I can't afford to live in Mayfair.
No, exactly. But there are other places in the country that are probably crying out for workers. Could spread around the country. You can say, right, do you know what? There is a job going here. There are more jobs, more opportunities. You'll need to move to this area. And people really don't like it when you have that conversation.
No, apart from the fact that people who pay their own way do that all the time.
Precisely,
they move for jobs all the time, don't they?
Yeah.
Can we come back to what we discussed we just had with Jonathan Sachs-Doherty about what's going on with Israel? David Lammy, and he is always posturing. Everything he does is posturing. The Foreign Secretary announcing these sanctions on two senior ministers, security and defence ministers in the Israeli government. Oh, and this isn't over Gaza, interesting. It's over what they've said about the settlements in the West Bank. Now, I think Israel is wrong to do these settlements in the West Bank. I completely understand the security concerns. However, there has been violence, there have been issues. These two ministers are not ministers I hold a candle for, I've got to be honest with you. But what the hell is the British government doing, sanctioning ministers in a allied government's, cabinet, when they're in the middle of a war? What the hell do we think we're doing?
Well, it's a foreign secretary who doesn't understand the role of diplomacy in these kind of options. No, I mean, I don't hold any candle to these two individuals either, and they are propping up Netanyahu's coalition cabinet, and unfortunately he has to have them there. But what's it got to do with us? What's been said and what's been done when there are worse atrocities that have taken place. And I think Jonathan said that. There are people who have committed worse crimes who have not been sanctioned or even mentioned in all of this. But then this is the same David Lammy that is currently over in Gibraltar, probably selling out to the EU. And that announcement will drop, funnily enough, when the spending review comes
exactly.
out.
I mean, Chagos Islands give away, Falkland, give away all. It is quite bizarre. I mean, again, I genuinely think he's too stupid to be doing this job. I really, really have issues with David Lammy. Falling out also with the US making it really clear. I mean, one of the things Donald Trump is sound on, I remember discussing this with you even ahead of the election. I knew I'd want him in for the US. I think he's terrible on Ukraine. I'm hoping he's coming around to the fact that Vladimir Putin is making him look like an idiot. But on Ukraine, standing absolutely firm. And again, I just think, David Lammy, why are you not sanctioning members of governments, many other governments or leaders in other countries where the most outrageous abuses of human rights are taking place?
Well, this is it. And so we don't need to fall out with the US over this. If there is a hill to die on, this isn't it.
This is not the hill.
Okay,
and again, it will achieve nothing.